Hey, welcome to Truth and Reality. I'm Ashley, and this podcast is dedicated to just that, talking about the ups, the downs, the in-betweens of life, and how God and our faith fits into all of it. We are back again this new year with a few episodes. Hey, Melissa.
I'm glad to be back, and it's fun to be on here and talking about goals and reflection, and now today hope. So, I'm excited.
Yeah, we are going to talk about hope. So we talked about reflecting on the past year and how we do that in the past episode. We talked about setting goals and intentions for a new year. And now we're going to talk about hope. Like, what does hope look like? Walking into a new season, a new year, there's anticipation, there's maybe some anxiety or not knowing or wondering. What does hope look like for you? I know we've both had kind of interesting relationships with hope over the last few years.
I think hope now looks like different than the hope probably in previous years. I think I can be honest and authentic, because that's what we are on here, is that there was probably a really hard season for me previously, probably in the not last year, but the year before that and previous, after Matt passing, that it felt really hopeless. Lack of vision, lack of just uncertainty, lack of like what's next. And so I would say there's probably some hopeless moments of just feeling really unsure and unknown of what was ahead. I think the season that I'm in now has been such a beautiful season of healing the last year and two. And so I feel hope is definitely knocking at our door, and I think there's joy that's there. And so I think to be hopeful is really just trusting God and excited to possibly know trusting Him with what's ahead.
Yeah. And what does that look like? Like, I know we both walked through hard seasons. I walked through divorce. You obviously, you just mentioned walking through passing of Matt. It is hard in hard seasons to hold on to hope. There's a grieving process we walk through. And I think hope can sit next to it, but it's kind of clouded. You can't feel it. You can't see it. I almost feel as if like God kind of pulls your hand forward, kind of like grabs you and is like, we're going to keep moving forward. Because as you said, like now there's some hope coming in, but I kind of see it as a whole continuum.
Oh, totally.
Like your whole journey, it's been here, but in different seasons, there's different relationships to it, or you view it differently, or you can't see it because you are walking through grief.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to look at it, is that I don't think you could have said like, oh, I have hope, Melissa, that your life was going to get better in the beginning. It was really, really hard. I think you are completely beautifully right on with that illustration as God gently held my hand and carried me through those murky waters where things felt hopeless, and hope began to rise in our hearts of that there was healing and that there was joy. And so hope came in different forms. Now I feel like I'm very hopeful for what's ahead, and excited and anticipation probably of just, even though I don't know, right? But I feel like the healing that's happened when we allow Him into those spaces, and I think healing and hope go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think when we allow God to heal those dark, murky spots in our life, is that He can restore hope back into our lives. And I think I've seen that, and I'm a testimony of that, and so are you. You know, what does hope look like for you?
Yeah. Well, I just was listening to you thinking about like looking backwards. It's super easy to see the hand of God moving through really hard situations. When you're in it, you can't see it.
No.
I remember being in probably the lowest moments of my life, and I remember one of my high school best friends was like, called my mom and was like, is Ashley okay? Like, I really want, like, how can I show up? Because she was seeing and hearing hopelessness, right? Probably in that situation for me. Looking back, I can see the hand of God, of the people and the friends and the family that supported, that pulled me through, and how God pulled me through in the development and healing, that there's hope sprinkled around, but it's almost like when a yarn, right? It like is unwound and then winds up. It's kind of like that. And so hope for me has been a challenge. I've been in seasons where I've been afraid to hope.
Sure.
I've been afraid to hope because I don't want to be disappointed.
I think that was probably last year for me, was I was afraid to hope because I was uncertain that there would be good. So it was like, I'd rather not hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not hopeless. I was not hopeless. I
Yeah.
just didn't want to hope at all because I just thought I'm okay just staying here. You know?
Yeah. And I think for me, that was my protective mechanism.
I was just going to say that. Like, it was
Your
just
hands.
safe. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
that was my bubble. Like, nope, I'm not going to hope for good. I'm not going to hope for joy to be back in our house. I'm just good right here.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
Well, I
I'm
love how
good, God.
God sits with you there.
Yeah.
Like, he's respectful. He, like, sat with me there.
Yep.
And he sat with you there. And it's in that place that we're inviting him into. I think we both have learned. We've had a similar coach. We have a similar coach who's taught us to invite God into those hard spaces. So if there is hopelessness, inviting him into that and allowing him to work and heal. Because there is, I don't have a good reference in the Bible scripture, but without hope, people perish, right?
Yep.
And hope deferred makes the heart sick,
Yep.
but a longing fulfilled is the tree of life.
Yep.
And so what's so interesting is I also had that, I didn't want to hope.
Yep.
And God's like, well, if you're not hoping, like he just gave me that essence of like, if you're not having a hopeful perspective, not happy, not always positive, right? But if you don't have hope, then is there an area here where you're trying to control or you have a lack of trust in God? So he's changed my perspective on if I have hope, it's not hope that my circumstances are going to be good.
Yep.
Because we live in this world and it's fallen, it's broken.
Yep.
So my hope needs to be in him. Now what's interesting is I've learned that my whole life. And maybe you have too.
100%.
That you keep hearing, your hope's in God, not in perfect circumstances.
Yep.
And we're all here saying, we want good circumstances.
Not perfect, just good.
Just good.
Yep.
And that, I mean, we're human. No one wants pain.
No.
one wants trials.
No.
But what's interesting is my perspective on having my hope in God has shifted a little bit. Like I talked about last time when I was handing him my anxiety about the future. I wouldn't call it anxiety. I would say I just want to know.
Yeah.
Right? But that's that fear. I wouldn't have named it as that. As I handed it to him, he gave me his hand in return. And hope changed. For me, it was less about circumstance and more about God's presence with me. It was less about being like, I just want to know everything's going to be okay out there. Because I also have experienced trial and pain. And I actually found deep hope and peace through it. Not right away, but along the way, as I invited God in, I found deep hope and peace knowing that God's with me. That whatever's coming, he's going to help me navigate it. He's going to help me walk through. And he does have good plans for me. I think as Romans 8:28 says that he works all things for good. Now, if you would have told me that, or if I would have told you that 5 or 6 years ago, that would have been inappropriate because we're in grieving seasons, and it kind of would have felt mean. That's how I felt about it, right? Like all things, I remember saying, there is no way that God could make this good when I walked through my divorce. I said that. I felt that. And as I've walked through and I reflect back, I can see how he's worked and moved and shifted and changed and grown. That one circumstance, not good. Your circumstance, not good. But he has worked good from it. There was a preacher I really love listening to, Stephen Furtick. He reads my mail. Okay, that's what it feels like. But at one point he was saying, do you think bread is good? Yes, because it is a mixture of all these different ingredients. But if you tasted one of the ingredients, like baking soda, straight out, like a spoonful, it wouldn't be good. But in this mixture of working it all to good, it makes something good. And that was the essence he was trying to communicate. And that really helped me with the perspective of my life and hope. That hope isn't necessarily about the circumstance. It's about God and trusting if we're still here, God's not done. He's going to work all of these things for his glory and my good.
That's good.
Right?
And I think for me, hope came in a different form. I think it had to change the way I viewed my life. So hope had to enter, the perspective of my life. Because I was so hopeless, I think just my outlook on life was negative. Like I thought, they'll never be good. After Matt died, like there'll never be joy that enters my home. I'll never have fresh vision. I'll never have, beautiful dreams and things like that. And so I think hope had to come in and invade the way I looked at life. And, hope brought back vision, and hope brought back love, hope brought back, joy in our home. So it's interesting for me. It was so much about my mind and how I viewed my life. So it's like letting hope, be birthed in my heart again to be able to dream and believe that there's good ahead.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think hoping and dreaming and believing all go hand in hand. So
yeah. I always talk about Psalm 139. So it talks a lot about Psalm 139, that God knows you and he crafted you and he created you on purpose for a purpose, that he wrote all of your days before you even breathed a breath, and all of your days are recorded in his book. And I just love the essence of that, is that you're just not hoping for a horse or a unicorn like you when you were younger, or like, oh, I'm just hoping for, a Cadillac Escalade black, big rims. You're not just hoping for things like that. You're literally giving God your desires and trusting him with it and saying, Lord, what are your plans for me? I want to hope in your plans, your will. Providence means the protective will of God. And in God's plan for you, he has a purpose and a plan, and we might go this way and then this way, and it's never, for me anyways, a straight path, because human. But walking God out is hope, knowing he's with me. He's walking through every step. He has good plans. He will work it for good. And a lot of it is about being. It's about the relationships that are created between you and God, but then other people on this journey. I think for so long, hope to me felt like getting somewhere that I wasn't. Right? Like, I want to be there, not here. Somewhere in the future, or when I get to this point. And God's teaching me that hope has less to do with getting somewhere that you're not, but being where you are and trusting in that rest with him.
And I think for me, hope came in another vision and another form of that. I was so hopeless and I lacked vision, but God brought people that restored my hope. And brought deep friendships and deep connections, and brought God in that form in another way, right? He did it multiple ways, but it's like those people, you were one of them, rallied around me and believed in me and championed the kids and I to be like, things are going to be good. You're going to get through this. There's going to be good ahead. So I think God works in different forms, and I think in that moment, in those times, it was through people as well, which was such a beautiful gift,
Yeah, it is. And I like how, like, as you brought your real thoughts, your real concerns, your real, like, this can't be good. Me too. Like, how could you work good from this? Almost like, for me anyways, it was almost like, prove it.
Oh, 100%.
Right? Like, are you sure you can? And sometimes it was like in desperation, like, God, can you? Right? So there was this heart process where you're inviting God in, you're giving him your raw emotion, and as you exchange with God, that's where that healing comes. And that's where the perspective shift comes, right? Where you're allowing him to help you see how he sees and what he sees and how he wants to grow you.
I think one of my favorite stories that I can chuckle at now, because it was a very hard time in my life, but the kids and I will laugh about it more because it was a hard point, but it was like probably our first Christmas after Matt passed. I was very angry at God. I was very just unsure and like, how are you good? How are you going to be good? And I think I remember waking up Christmas morning and I was yelling at the Christmas tree. And I was like, I dare you, God, make this good. I dare you, make our broken pieces and turn it into something good. And I didn't know it, but the kids were standing behind me and they were like, Mom's losing it. She thinks God's the Christmas tree. And they still talk about the story now. And obviously I didn't think God was the Christmas tree, but it was in that moment of desperation that I dared him to say, make it beautiful. And the good thing is he has. And he's restored hope in my kids' life and my life, and restored our dreams and brought beautiful things. And so even in that very desperate moment, I know he heard me. And it's I think God can handle those prayers, those bold prayers of just saying, I dare you, make it good, make it beautiful.
Yeah. Well, and I love how the Psalms paints David that way. He does. He brings his raw emotion. Sometimes he's like, these people are trying to kill me and they're the worst. And all this, that like hard, raw emotion. And then he goes, okay, God, and you're still good. And you're still God. And you're still on the throne. And then he changes it. And I think in those moments, you're giving him a psalm from your heart. And in those moments, God meets us. He meets us whether we come expectant, resistant, we're running to him because desperation. Either way, and however we come, he meets us. And I love that picture of that, of the Psalms. And it makes me as a human realize, oh, this is when I feel this, I can bring it to God.
Yep.
I don't have to hide it from God.
No, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think even in that moment with the Christmas tree, it was raw and real, and I think he could handle it because you know what followed? He gave me peace.
Mm-hmm.
He carried me through that Christmas, right? The first Christmas was so hard, but yet every family event that we went to, I felt his peace. And it was like the psalm said, like, he'll be there for you. He won't forsake you. He sees you. He acknowledges you. He has not forgotten you. I think there's people probably listening on here that think they're forgotten or lost or God has given up. It's like we have served a faithful God, and we all do, that he restores hope in us, even to hopeless situations. And I think it's so beautiful to see God work in all different ways of all aspects of my life, your life, and people listening. So
it is beautiful. I love, I also always talk about this. There are a few things that I love to talk about.
Yes, I know what you're going to say.
But in the Psalms, David says, why so downcast, O my soul? Put your hope in God. And when we were in Israel, which we never rehashed that, but that's okay, that's for us.
Amazing trip.
Amazing trip. When we were in Israel, they talked about that verse. And the word hope is tikva. And I have it on my ring right here. And the Hebrew word tikva, and tikva actually means wait. And it's waiting like the soldiers did on the watchtowers on the walls for the sun to rise. So it's saying, why so downcast, O my soul? Put your weight in God. And it's waiting as sure as the sun rise. Those soldiers would wait, and they knew for certain the sun would rise every day. It always rises. It never has never risen. Never has never. It's a double negative. But you know what I mean. It has always risen. And so that's the type of hope we have in God. It's as sure as the sunrise to the sunset that he's with us, that he's faithful, that his promises are true. And that for me was a marked moment, hearing that and learning that. And that for me in Israel was God saying, you can trust me. You can put your hope in me. I am as sure as the sunrise and the sunset. I will be faithful. God is faithful. It's his character. And it's not dependent on me.
No, not at all. That's what he's known to be, right? And we've seen it time and time again in the Word. And it's like, I think we have to put our hope in him, even if there's been hopeless situations in our life, trusting that God can restore it, right? God can redeem it. God can take those broken places that you and I have both seen and restore hope, you know? So,
and life doesn't look actually what I thought it would look like or anticipate, thinking and talking about hope. So even talking about the future, what would I hope for? I actually don't necessarily have a huge hope for. I'm saying, okay, God, what plans do you want me? I'm expectant, I think, for what God will do.
This is what my life would have looked like either, but yet I'm not hopeless. And so I'm entrusting him with my hope of that whatever he has will be good. Almost it's like a faith confession, like, God, I trust you. And I believe in you that you're going to make good out of all this, and he has. But he continue.
Yeah, and he has. And it's interesting because I would say there are so many parts of my life that are more full than I thought they could be.
I agree. Full and like healed and restored is what I'll say, right? And I think God's brought redemption, and I think that's beautiful to see, but completely different than I thought.
Which is good. God always does more than we think.
100%. Yes, but never what I pictured. You know what I'm saying?
Same.
So grateful for that.
So we just wanted to continue the conversation and hope the next time we come back. But thanks for joining us this time. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Peace Run Steve.